Kentucky basketball is still looking for their final scholarship to fill on this year's upcoming roster, and it looks like their biggest target, five-star Will Riley's recruitment, is coming down to the wire.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be discussing the latest with five-star Will Riley. Also on today's episode, Jasper Johnson down in Argentina helps Team USA win gold. What do we think about Jasper's skill set, and what do we think about Mark Pope going all the way down to Argentina to continue to recruit this five-star guard out of the state of Kentucky? Going to dive into all of that today. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and that's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. If you are watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you went ahead and subscribed to the show. If you have not subscribed on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. Kentucky basketball prospect Will Riley, a five-star in the 2025 class, that is looking to potentially reclassify to this year, is coming down to the wire with his recruitment. As we noted last week, Will Riley on a visit with Kentucky basketball. Following his visit in Lexington, though, scheduled to take a visit with a couple of other big-time schools. Alabama, Illinois, Arizona also in the mix here as well. And he has now taken his official visits to both Illinois and Alabama, both on June 3rd and June 6th. And it seems like his recruitment is kind of coming down to the wire, and we could have an answer as early as this week as to whether or not Riley does reclassify and commits to the Wildcats or elsewhere. According to what beat writers are saying on this matter online, you can turn to David Sisk, specifically over at Rivals. He said that this recruitment is most likely going to come down to Kentucky and Illinois, and we should be expecting an answer potentially this week. Alabama is out of the mix because of the fact that their roster is just simply loaded this upcoming season. Arizona is out. Apparently not enough interest there. So this is going to come down to whether or not Riley wants to come play for Mark Pope and the Wildcats this upcoming season or the Fighting Illini. And I'm not going to lie, I don't know much about Illinois' roster. I do know that they're losing out on Terrence Shannon Jr. this year as a prime scorer for them. But overall, Illinois fits, I think, the mold, honestly, of what Will Riley wants to do as far as play up-tempo, shoot threes, play on offense with some freedom. Illinois really was very solid on the offensive end last year, especially when it came to tempo and just chucking up some shots. And Will Riley, one of the most fascinating offensive prospects that I have ever covered on this channel, I think would fit right in there up in Champaign. However, I also think that he would fit just as well, if not better, here in Lexington. And that's where I've continued to kind of beat the drum when it comes to five-star Will Riley. In case you don't know, 6'8", 180-pound small forward. He is technically listed as a four-star prospect on three different major recruiting sites, but On3 has him rated so high as a five-star that it brings up his composite rating up to a five-star. He's the number 15 overall prospect nationally in the 2025 class, the number 3 small forward, and the number 2 player in the state of Pennsylvania. Insane offensive talent. He is very unique. He has a bit of a quirky game, according to On3's Jamie Shaw. And when you actually go and watch this kid, you really get to get to see just how, I guess, uncharacteristic his work is as a small forward on the offensive side of the ball. He tends to be a little herky-jerky when it comes to handling the basketball, but it is super, super effective when it comes to actually getting to his spots inside the arc. He's very effective in the mid-range. He's very effective going to the rim. He's also a very solid outside shooter as well. This past season was shooting almost 50% from three when it came from off the dribble shooting. He was shooting 41.7% from three when it came to catch and shoot shots. He's a very, very capable scorer at all three levels. He's got the height, he's got the length to honestly maybe play all the way up at a guard spot in some really weird rotations. He, again, has been the most fascinating offensive prospect that I have seen covering different recruits during my time on this show, and I think that when you look at what he brings to the table, if he reclassifies, you have to start to ask the question, okay, as a contributor, does Riley want to be a one-and-done prospect? And my assumption is yes. My assumption is a lot of these different five-star kids want to be one-and-done prospects. Will he get the opportunity at a place like Kentucky to showcase his abilities and be that type of one-and-done prospect where he can be a first-round draft pick in next year's NBA draft? Will he have those minutes when you look at the fact that he is Kentucky's final scholarship player? Will he be able to kind of beat out some of these other wings to play and get some legitimate time? Kobe Brea, Otega Dawe, Jackson Robinson, those three right there, going to be very, very tough to beat out for minutes at that three spot. Brea, you could probably slide up to the two, but Jackson Robinson, you've also got Trent Noah, you've also got guys like Travis Perry who are going to play the two a little bit as well, so it's going to slide guys like Brea down in different lineups if Kentucky views both Noah and Perry as legitimate contributors. Colin Chandler also in here as well, something that I've not talked about nearly enough. I think Chandler is going to be very special for Kentucky right out of the gate. So a guy like Will Riley, I think that he, if we're being honest, I think that he would project out best as a player that could contribute and be ready day one next season for the Kentucky Wildcats. I think that he would get minutes this year. I think, again, I would love to have him. I think he would be very valuable for Pope and the Cats just because of their system and how they like to operate. I think he would be a very, very special scorer for them. But in terms of impact, I don't know if he would be able to get the playing time that he would want to have if the goal is to come in for one season, be a first-round draft pick, get in, get out, and get your minutes and get your stats. I don't think he's going to be able to do that. I think he would have to stay for at least another season at Kentucky to really show that. Maybe I'm overestimating his abilities or underestimating his abilities, and he would be able to actually go out there, beat out some different guys on this roster for playing time. He would be able to get 15 to 20 minutes a game somehow, and he would be able to, in that time, really showcase what he's able to do, specifically at the next level for an NBA team. I just don't see that happening. It's very, very difficult because of the fact that Robinson and Brea exist, also Dawe as well. They're going to get minutes. They're going to get time. But if we're looking at this as a long-term prospect, if we're looking at him as a contributor and saying, okay, how does he project out if he stays in college? This is a starting small forward next year. Absolutely. And you would have to feel really, really, really good about it as, hey, this could be somebody that kind of leads the charge when it comes to knocking down shots, scoring the basketball. The core that Kentucky will walk into next season with, I think is going to be important. Guys like Brandon Garrison, who will stay on this roster. Technically, Otega Dawe, if I'm not mistaken, has another year of eligibility. His game as a super senior is going to be very important. Guys like Travis Perry, Trent Noah, freshmen that will come back on this roster, they're going to be very important, I think, for Mark Pope to start to build a core and then build players outside of that around it. So Riley I think you could pitch definitely a long-term investment to him, but I'm not sure if that's what he's interested in. I hope it is. Honestly, because all of that being said, this is a very good player. This is a very, very, very good player. Hope he chooses Kentucky. It's either UK or Illinois. Expect an answer by the end of this week. If not, we'll continue to break it down here on Locked On Kentucky. Let me know what you think about Will Riley in the comments below. He's down to 2 schools. Where do you think he goes? Do you think he should join as the 13th player on the scholarship on this roster? Let me know in the comments below. At Locked On UK on Twitter is where you can find me if you want to give an answer there. All right, Let's talk a little bit about Jasper Johnson. He has helped Team USA win gold down in Argentina, and he looked pretty dang good doing it. Let's break it down. Let's see what Mark Pope has been up to lately in just a second. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. When you are hiring for your small business, you want to find quality candidates that are right for the role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, because they have the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It is not just another job board. They help you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a job, but might be open for a potential new role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you are not looking on LinkedIn, you are simply looking in the wrong place. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many different hats that they might not have the time or resources to hire, and they are constantly finding ways to make the process easier. You can post your job for free today at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, continuing along here on the Monday edition of Locked On Kentucky, Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Again, I really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would greatly appreciate it if you went ahead and did so. If you are listening and you want to check out the Locked On Kentucky Discord, which is a free place for all of us to go chat about all things Kentucky basketball, Kentucky football, Kentucky baseball, which has made it to Omaha. Ladies and gentlemen, they have made it out of the Super Regionals. They are heading to Nebraska, one of the final teams in the College World Series. Super, super exciting stuff there. If you want to break that down, you want to talk about that with some other fans of BBN, you can go and check out my Twitter at @LanceDawe_. At the top of my Twitter, you can see a link pinned to join the Discord if you want to do that today. Again, at @LanceDawe_. If you want to check out the Discord, it's a fun place to hang out. Let's talk a little bit about Jasper Johnson, a 5-star combo guard in next year's class, a 6'4", 170-pound guard, ranked as the number 3 combo guard, number 11 player in the nation, ranked as the number 1 player out of Missouri, out of Branson, Missouri, but he was originally from Lexington, Kentucky, Johnson was. In case you don't know, being recruited by Auburn, Kentucky, I think Kansas is in here as well, Alabama in here as well. Recently took a visit to Auburn. Actually, that was his most recent visit, if I'm not mistaken, back in February. North Carolina, Bama, also different visits here. Johnson, one of the better scores, if we're talking about today's episode, is just filled with 2 players that know how to get a bucket. Johnson at 6'4", just a very, very solid score, just overall, inside, outside, has a very deep bag when it comes to actually handling the basketball, getting inside, finishing at the rim effectively. He's a very solid player with some length to him as well. He's got a very solid wingspan at 6'4". You love the height there. He gets out in transition. He finishes really well. He shoots statistically well from 3. I'm not a huge fan of the jump shot for him, but it goes in, so nobody should really care, honestly. Left-handed player that will get the job done in spurts. And you can go see that in his various recruiting profiles and different breakdowns from different scouting reports, that he knows how to score, and whenever he gets hot, he gets very, very hot. Although I will say, if we're talking about a negative to Jasper's game, he not only, I think, needs to build a little bit of muscle to kind of build out his frame, which will come with time. That's not necessarily something that he has to have had done up until this point. It will come with time. But also he needs to learn how to do things outside of scoring the basketball that actually impact the game. And I think during his time in Argentina with Team USA this past week, he was able to kind of do a little bit of everything for Team USA. During his time there in Argentina, Team USA winning gold, just absolutely dominating some different competition, averaged over 10 points per game on 51.5% shooting. Had a really, really solid game in the championship game, having 19 points, 7 of 11 from the floor, 4 of 8 from 3, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 turnovers, 3 steals in 21 minutes and 15.9 minutes per game. During the 6 games, he shot 51% from the floor, 42% from 3, while averaging 1.3 rebounds, 2.7 assists, 0.8 steals. had a 17.8 plus minus, which was the second best on the team, if I'm not mistaken. Very solid in 10 points per contest. He looked really good. He looked really, really good during the time in Argentina. But I will say, I think you're going to find more value here if we're talking about Johnson and how effective and how good he is in various spots. You're going to find more value in his high school tape, because I'm going to be honest with you, some of the teams that Team USA faced off against this past week were not very good, at least relative to the talent that Team USA had. They blew some teams out of the water, and a lot of the highlights shown for Johnson are simply just the team getting out in transition and getting easy layups. That being said, I think that there were definitely some interesting spot up things that happened for Johnson during his time, like against Canada. I thought he looked really solid there. But I don't know if I'd put a ton of stock into his performance. I think you would want to see maybe some more things from his high school, especially this fall, in terms of just seeing what he can kind of bring to the table. Although I will say, shooting 42% from three, I mean, it just outweighs or outdoes essentially everybody else on the roster. He was one of the best 3-point shooters on the floor just about every single time. He's confident too. Really, really solid in catch and shoot situations, which I would not have expected from the Southpaw. Mark Pope, all the way down in Argentina to watch this player go at it alongside Malachi Marino, Datunde Yesufu, Davion Hanna, Pope was down there for a bunch of different recruits, but specifically, if I'm not mistaken, Johnson. I loved Mark Pope's tweets throughout these past few days down in South America. First of all, him posting a tweet and saying, just prayers up for this engine, because he was driving a stick shift and he was just saying he wasn't very good at it. And then also he showed a picture. He was on a morning run in Argentina, and he saw a restaurant that had just Kentucky, just a big blue sign that just said Kentucky on the outside of it. So Argentina feels like home for Mark Pope. Slowly beginning to really love Mark Pope's social media game alongside the rest of the staff, by the way. Alvin Brooks, just phenomenal. Cody as well, just really, really, really good social media presence from this entire staff, which is something that you've not necessarily been able to say. But Jasper Johnson, a confident shooter, a confident scorer, needs to work on different things outside of that with his game. But man, he can knock down a shot or two. Definitely get into the paint. Definitely finish at the rim. I love him as a 3-point shooter statistically. One of the best scorers in next year's class. Mark Pope down there checking him out for Team USA. We'll keep tabs on Jasper Johnson's recruitment. We'll see what happens with him. I think that he would be a really fun addition for a team like Kentucky with a Mark Pope offense, being able to kind of run and gun, score in transition. Somebody that I think would work really well at the 2. Let me know what you think in the comments below. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at LockedOnUK. You can follow me on Twitter at LanceDawe_, and you can follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.